Hey Bookworms.
I'm Book Mouse.
And I'm Book Kitty, and this is
Our
BookNook.
BookNook.
Today we are going to take a walk with the last man on Earth.
With Richard Matheson's book, I Am Legend. You may recognize there's a recent movie of the same name starring Will Smith, which is based off of Mr. Matheson's story.
In case you didn't notice it or haven't seen my bookshelf tour, I am hugely into vampire literature. I have an entire bookcase that's all vampire stuff, an entire bookcase behind me that is everything else. So it may surprise you to say that this is the first time I've actually read I Am Legend. I have been interested in it since I saw the movie. I was like, oh, this is a whole different take. This is so cool. But I just never did it. I don't even have an excuse. I don't know why. Maybe it was an inherent fear of, I had a fear for a while of getting into sci-fi. It was something my dad liked, and I told you about this when we were at the library, that I used to judge books by their cover, and old sci-fi book covers are cheesy. Not enticing. Not very enticing at all. So it might just be some residual childhood prejudices. So I avoided it for a long time, and I finally read it, and I'm really glad I did. Oh my gosh. So it is an entirely different take on vampires, and if I'm not mistaken, I keep forgetting to do my fact checking, but I'm pretty sure this was the first science-related vampire novel out there. And the reason I say, last week I said sci-fi, this week I'm saying science. The reason for that is sci-fi really means speculative fiction. So all vampire novels are speculative fiction, but this is more science-based. Yeah. Which I clearly enjoy, because Lindsay Sand's Argento series is also hugely science-based. It's just a totally different side of the science. I enjoyed the newness of it.
The newness of a book from 1954?
Yeah. I think Richard Matheson really touched on the conundrum of being alone for so long. I think that was one of the main illustrated factors of the book, was Robert's loneliness. He really got into that, really got deep into it.
He did, and he also looked at different aspects of the loneliness.
Yes. The sexual drive, the talking. He found a dog and called out to him, and his voice was hoarse, and he could barely get any sound out. Like, the detail that he put in. Did this man, Richard Matheson, spend a lot of time, like, alone? Was he a hermit?
At one point in the story, he laughs to himself and scares himself because he hasn't heard himself laugh in so long. He forgot what the sound was and what the sensation was. But,
I can't imagine that. Like, I literally can't imagine that. It's never happened to me.
Yeah, to be that isolated. And really, to have the only thing talking to you is
Ben Courtman.
Yes. An infected person who's nuts himself now because of the infection, screaming at you night after night.
And the women vampires tearing off their dresses. Come here, baby!
And then you have to look at, too, Robert Neville, to keep himself from going crazy. He had routines. Mm-hmm. This has to be done every day. This has to be done every week. This is done on this day. This is done on this day.
If it's rainy, I do this. If it's not rainy, I go out.
Yeah, and it was also all based on the time schedule, because when dusk came, he had to be locked up in his house.
But he did learn a whole bunch about psychology, though.
Yes. He was trying to understand, his state of mind. And then he was using that to jump off and teach himself. To teach himself the basis of science.
Yes.
He was not a scientist.
Matter of fact, he actively avoided it, too, because wasn't his dad a scientist?
Yes, attention to detail and very organized.
Yes, and he was everything but.
Everything but.
But then when he did get organized,
he was very good at it.
He was very good at it and very, like, impressed with himself. And he's like, oh, yeah, there's my father again.
Yeah. But, you know, he realized that the variations of what was happening to their society had to come from somewhere. It didn't just come from nowhere. So he started with the basics and researching and being very methodical. They need blood. Why do they need blood? What's making them want the blood?
How does blood act?
And
Why are they sensitive to the sunlight? That was a big breakthrough.
And it was just amazing how, I mean, he struggled with it. It took him time. He had to drive to the library and grab as many books as he could from this college library.
I'm remembering a Doctor Who quote. We have the best weapons in the world. Books! Now, it's a paraphrase quote, because I don't remember exactly, but it's from Silence in the Library. David Tennant. And Donna Noble.
Yeah. But
Donna Noble has been saved. Donna Noble has left the library. I'm sorry. It's my favorite Doctor Who episode.
It's
my favorite Doctor Who episode. Oh no, we've talked about it.
But he makes an effort. He gets the books. He teaches him. He's reading these books and trying to learn about it. And when he doesn't understand some of the concepts, he goes back to the beginning and gets books to teach him the words, the concepts, the scientific method, how to use a microscope.
And then 3 years later, he's babbling it all off and then realizing that he's using all these terms that would have stymied him 3 years ago.
Yeah. And so it's just really amazing how much he changes after the trauma. And not just in his knowledge base, but here's a man who was married with a child. And now he's all alone. And I mentioned that I Am Legend starring Will Smith is loosely based on this story.
Yeah, I want to rewatch the movie this week.
There are some very different takes that the movie took from what the book is, but I think that just means that you don't know word for word what's going to happen in the movie, which is kind of nice. But
and maybe it's been updated a little bit.
It has.
I mean, we were talking about how the book does have. I counted 2. There might be a few more, but I counted 2 obsolete term references. One being the term Negro. It is a product of its time. It was written in 1954. That does not excuse racism in the authors. I want to be very clear about that. But when you read the book, you kind of need to take that in stride and realize.
You need to take that in stride, but also he didn't use it in that hateful tone of voice. He didn't use it in that dismissive tone of voice. It was just matter of fact describing a person so that you would know that he was black and Robert was white. And he wasn't, and that was it. It was just a statement and he moved on. He didn't go on a tirade. He didn't.
See, I think sometimes that just indicates how comfortable with it they are and how racist they are.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was a product of its time. Every white man in America in 1954, or at least the majority of, were quite racist. And I'm like I said, I'm not condoning it. I'm not thinking that's okay at all. I'm not even saying you have to put up with it and read the book. But if you choose to read the book, just keep in mind to, like, look past it for the moment. Because the story, I think, is worth it for 2 outdated references.
Right.
And I don't remember what the other one was. It wasn't related to African Americans or anything. It was, I don't know, maybe about women or something. It was something like derogatory. And I was like, oh yeah, we don't use that anymore.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that plot twist. That thing got me. I was just like, what happens when the world ends? As far as you know, as far as you've seen, you're the only human left. What becomes of morality when society doesn't exist? Pretty sure that goes down to just your morality.
Yeah,
your inner rules.
Your own compass.
Most of the stories that we read today that do have some sort of humans on the brink of destruction kind of motif, and with mankind reclaiming what was theirs or clinging on to the last dredges and repopulating and coming through because we're humans and we like to read about our own success. But what happens if that isn't what happens?
How can one man repopulate the whole world by himself?
As we mentioned last week, we need a team to succeed. So how does humankind survive when there's only one left? Or does it survive? And if it doesn't survive, then what does the world become? Is there a new society? Is there no society? Is it just a bunch of animals taking over the planet? And by animals, yes, I'm also referring to the vampires. So what happens? And I think that the book pleasantly surprised me with the way that it ended.
Cool. I was hoping you liked it. I actually, not to date myself, read this book in the late 70s, early 80s. And that's why I remembered the story so well, and I knew the book was not the movie. Although, disclaimer here, there was another movie based on the book. It's a little bit closer to the book, called The Omega Man. And I liked Will Smith's I Am Legend very much. I think they did a very good job.
Will Smith just hasn't done any bad movies. Even some of the ones that have been critically whatever, I still enjoyed them.
Yeah, but Omega Man, for, made in the 70s, not a lot of money, I still think they did a good job. Because the base story is that good. I really think that when you have a story that good, that is that good, you have to work to mess it up. And I really hope you guys enjoy this story as much as we did.
Next week, we will be doing our first, hopefully, book and movie video. We're actually looking pretty ambitious. I didn't realize how long this was. This is a little over 400, about 400 pages. We are going to do Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. So yeah, 2 vampire books in a row. Didn't think that through. But that's okay, because that's both of our genres. So we're excited. And this is totally different from most of the vampire genre stuff that we read. And I have read it. I read it right after I watched the movie, and I fucking loved both. I loved the book. I loved the movie. I loved the concept. I mean, who ever thought? Obviously, Seth Grahame-Smith thought of making Abraham Lincoln a vampire hunter, but who'd have thunk?
And this will be completely new to me. I have neither read the book nor seen the movie.
And we're gonna do both.
Yay!
So, movie night on Thursday then?
We can do it.
Hell yeah. Alright, so next week we're gonna be talking about this and how it compares to the movie, how we liked the book, whether we liked both or liked one over the other, whatever. We're just gonna talk about it all. So once again, this has been
Book Mouse
and Book Kitty
signing off. Alright, so if you'd like to check out one of our previous videos, check out one of my favorite authors, Mercedes Lackey. We have her trilogy, The Arrows, right up there.
And if you'd like to check out my favorite author and the book that I mentioned in this video, you can go ahead and take a look down there at Love Bites by Lindsay Sands.
And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so that you always know when we have a new video.